Welcome to this video on a concept I have constructed called the spectrum of consciousness. It is a concept that is derived from other thought patterns, let's say, that have been created by other philosophers, psychologists, thinkers, etc. But here it is. The spectrum of consciousness. In life, we have a trade-off between being completely conscious and completely ignorant. We lie somewhere in between, I would say. Consciousness is associated with realization, seeing, and we live in a world where there are many unfortunate things and painful things that occur, and that can be difficult to realize. So consciousness first can lead to pain when you realize the difficulty and the complexity of life, but it leads to growth. It can lead to growth because you can transcend that pain, you can learn from it and become more of a whole person, stronger, more knowledgeable, more charismatic, let's say. On the other side, we have complete or full ignorance. Full ignorance is where you close a blind eye, let's say. You look away. You don't face the truth of matters. And that can first leads to satisfaction because it's like instant gratification. You don't realize there's a problem. You just say everything is fine. And that makes you feel good in the moment. But in the long term, that leads to stagnation. It's the opposite of growth. And maybe even regression. You move backwards. It's the opposite of growth. And now I will discuss these two ends a little bit and what they mean, let's say. So, consciousness is associated with sight, with being aware. And it's metaphorically, it's not looking away, it's not turning a blind eye. It's associated with like maybe opening a bottle. My friend was talking about it and we were discussing realizing things and being aware, and he said it's like opening a bottle, and I thought sounds like opening the genie's, what's it called, a lamp. It's like you let the genie out of the bottle, which causes the situation to change, but a situation that doesn't allow you to ever go back. It's impossible to return, so you're stuck then. So once you're conscious, you're aware. You can't erase what you have seen, let's say. And if it's an ugly, terrible thing, that can take its toll on you. That's quite painful, actually. And I think Pandora's box explains this story quite nicely. Zeus made this box, Pandora's box, and placed all the evil and suffering in the box. And he said it is the constituents of the box, whatever is contained in the box, is not for mortal eyes. It's not for humans to see. And Pandora was also gifted, well, maybe it's a gift and a curse, but gifted with curiosity, and she couldn't help herself. And she couldn't help herself but open the box, which she was told not to. And out jumped monsters, suffering, pain, which was a terrible sight, let's say. That's the moment you open your eyes, you realize what's going on. It's a painful occurrence, let's say. But there was something in the box. There was hope. That was the only light in the box. Along with the pain and suffering and the horror, there was hope. And that is the transcendence of suffering, of consciousness. It's like you first suffer when you realize, but there is hope to rise above it and learn from it and incorporate the suffering in your personality to make it stronger, more well-rounded, more whole, more fulfilled. You fulfill the self more. And that's why consciousness is actually it's, you could say it's the road less traveled because it first entails pain, but it's the path to enlightenment, let's say, to become, it's like the enlightenment is the absence of suffering, of pain. So it's the road to the absence of pain, but that road is a very tricky one, and that's why most people don't take it. That's why there's such a short supply of well-rounded or wholeness in people, let's say. It's a risky endeavor also. People don't do it because it'll take you down. I mean, some people face the darkness or the suffering, the difficulty of life, and they don't transcend it actually. It takes them, they fall into a hole, and that risk is present. It's not certain that you transcend it and you come out stronger on the other side. It's like getting out of your comfort zone, staring evil into the eye, and facing suffering is a high risk endeavor. It really is. Yet there is always hope in this terrifying endeavor. Hope to overcome the challenge, the difficulty. Like facing hardship will easily take you out, and that's why people are afraid of it. Yet there's always potential for transcendence. Yeah. And this Pandora's box story is quite similar to actually to Adam and Eve when they eat the apple, well, and become conscious. When they become conscious, first of all, curiosity gets them. You know, they wanna taste the apple. They were told not to, but they do it. The snake convinces them, and they're curious. And they eat it, and then boom, they become conscious. And that's a terrifying thing. They realize they're naked, they are vulnerable. And there's also the moment that Adam and Eve become able to produce evil. Because when you become conscious, you realize what hurts you. And if you know what hurts you, you know what can hurt other people. So you are the ability to produce malevolence comes to fruition there. That's very important. And with consciousness, you become anxious about yourself. It's actually quite it has a negative connotation, consciousness, really. And we need to find this balance between consciousness and ignorance, because too much of both actually make us, I think they're extremes. They're two extremes. And now if we move on to the full ignorance, like a full sedative, that's where you look away, you lie to yourself, you corrupt your own ability to interpret reality relatively well, to see what is roughly true. You corrupt yourself and you can't sense anymore what is real and what's not. And at first this is easier because it doesn't entail improving yourself. It doesn't entail facing the fact that you're imperfect. That's difficult. You block growth. You ignore feedback. You remove the potential to grow. And that's why you stagnate, or you maybe even regress, because you are lying to yourself. And what Jordan Peterson says, Dr. Jordan Peterson, he says something along the lines of, lying produces hell and telling the truth redeems the world from hell. So if you lie to yourself, you make your own life and the life of the people around you more hell-like in that regressed direction. And that should be avoided. And it also entails this sort of arrogance, this pride that you don't have to improve yourself. You are already good. And that's quite pathological, I think, because you are far from perfect. You really are. There's so much room to grow and develop your personality and yourself. And if you don't do that, it's really a shame. And I think it's quite destructive also. But I think this is like a fundamental balancing act of life, is between being conscious and being ignorant. You're always in between these two, and some people gravitate more to one or the other, and it'll take its toll on them. So we need to sort of, I think we naturally we have a natural tendency to shift more to complete ignorance because that's the easy route, but we sort of need to find a way to take little doses of consciousness and become more wholly conscious as a whole. And don't take too big steps, because if you take too big steps, you look the dragon into the eye, and it'll look right back at you, and that it'll take part of you, and that's dangerous. That's a high risk act, and I think that's not to be not to be recommended. But slowly making yourself more resilient to what you see when you're conscious, you need to take little doses. So it's like you take a little bit of poison every day so you don't overdose in a month when you are forced to see what is terribly true. So you build this sort of armor, this ability to interpret what is terribly real. Yeah. So here it is again, the spectrum of consciousness one last time. We have full consciousness here and full ignorance on the other side. So we need to find a balance between both of them. And we should move more towards from ignorance to consciousness, because that enables us to grow as humans. And if everybody does that on a grand scale, I think society progresses more instead of regressing as a whole, as a collective. I think that's encouraged. That should be encouraged. So that was my video on the spectrum of consciousness. I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe you can implement or learn something from this trade-off in life, which I think you already know. You already know it deep down. You deal with this trade-off, but maybe you're not conscious of it. So maybe I could, there you go, conscious. Maybe I could bring some light or shed some light onto this balancing act we have to deal with. Thanks for listening.